So another thing we can do with our tables, in a previous video we just partitioned a table. Another thing that we can do is we can compress tables. Now, that might sound a little bit scary. Sometimes when you're thinking about compressing, you're thinking we compress to save space, but we pay a penalty for that. When we go to read the file, we read it faster, but then we have to uncompress it in memory, so it might slow us down. Yes, that is actually a potential situation. Most of the time, however, the limiting factor in SQL servers is input-output, so reading and writing to the drive in this scenario, rather than CPU time. They tend to have excess CPU time, but be I/O bound rather than processor bound. Okay, so in that case, doing compression might actually speed up our access because we're speeding up that which takes the longest, the reading and writing from the drive, and what we're most likely to run into congestion with, but we're using our processor time, which we may not have much congestion with, to go ahead and expand it, so it might actually speed up our access. I hope you followed that train of thought. That might not be the case, by the way. If your SQL server is single processor, it might become CPU bound, and so compressing might actually slow down your access. So you want to double check and see how things are actually running on your SQL server before you do this. Okay, introduction out of the way. Let's talk about how we can compress a table. And we're going to pick from our AdventureWorks database, we're going to pick this saleslt.address table. And so I'm going to right click and go to storage and manage compression. And we get our little, hey, welcome to the data compression wizard. Now, when we go to compress, we can compress here based on either page or row. And so if I compress on page, and by the way, if I'm doing this across multiple partitions, you can do it differently for each partition, or you can use the same row compression or same compression for all partitions. But in this case, this table is only stored on one partition, not two. So if I do the row compression, you can see right now I have a row count, and if I calculate, it will show me the current space that I'm using, and then after I complete this, how much space am I going to use? By the way, if I set this to none and calculate, it'll show, obviously, no change there. So the row says if I compress on the row, this is how much space I'm going to use when I'm done. If I compress on the page, this is going to be how much space I'm going to use when I'm done. So page compression for this table is going to be a little more efficient. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to click next. Okay, we talked about this in our previous video where we did partitions, that we have multiple options for output, and we just ran the script immediately. In this case, I want to click on create script, and I want to script this to a new query window. So I'm going to click next. I'm going to view all of the options and then finish. And it doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't compress the table, but it does give me a script that will do it. So at this point, I can save my script, run it later. I could take the script and modify it and do it with different tables. So I could take, let's say I wanted to do address and customer address the same way. I can just modify this script, copy what I want, and actually, I could just take this right here, copy, and then paste it, and change this to customer address. And now I'm doing both of them. In this case, I only want to do one, but I did want you to see how we could do that. Okay, when I'm happy with the script, and then I can also modify some things here, whatever. When I'm happy with the script, I click execute. And that runs it, and right here, commands completed successfully, query successfully executed. It's not giving me any feedback other than saying, hey, we did this. So now I have that file, or that table, compressed using page level compression. Okay, pretty straightforward. There we go. We have now partitioned and compressed tables in Microsoft SQL.